Today we will recap the old movie The Wolfman. Let's get started. The Wolfman is a 2010 American horror film directed by Joe Johnston and starring Benicio del Toro as the titular character Lawrence Talbot. The film is a reboot of the 1941 film of the same name and is loosely based on the classic horror story The Wolfman by Kurt Siodmak. The film follows Lawrence Talbot, an actor who returns to his family's estate in England after his brother's disappearance. Upon arriving, Lawrence discovers that his brother was killed by a mysterious creature, believed to be a werewolf. As he investigates the death, Lawrence is bitten by the creature and transforms into a werewolf. As the film starts, we see a man walking through the forest and getting attacked by an unknown predator. Tragically, he's tackled and subdued by the creature, meeting a gruesome end. Lawrence Talbot is approached by Gwen Cunliffe, who informs him that her fiancé, Benjamin, has been missing for almost a month. As Lawrence and Gwen try to investigate the mysterious disappearance of Benjamin, they also realize that two people were murdered around the same time Benjamin went missing. Lawrence becomes curious and wants to know more about Gwen's motivation for seeking his help, but reveals that she had embarked on a personal mission and had not Lawrence's father in her plans. Upon returning home, Lawrence becomes devastated to learn that his brother Benjamin has been found dead in a ditch by the Priory Road. The news is shocking to Lawrence, especially when he uncovers his brother's dead body and discovers that a wolf killed Benjamin. As Lawrence investigates the circumstances surrounding his brother's death, he becomes privy to conversations suggesting that a group of Romani travelers may be responsible for his brother's death. However, a particular guy draws a connection to a similar killing that occurred 25 years ago. The eyewitness's account of this previous incident describes the perpetrator as being significant, having claws, and didn't mind a load of the bookshop. The conversation gets clear and points to Larry's mother, who is said to have committed suicide. Suddenly, Lawrence tries fighting these guys who dare to accuse his mother but unfortunately becomes unsuccessful. Meanwhile, Gwen was also around. For quite some time, John and Lawrence had been tiffing each other regarding the treatment they get from the locals. Although Benjamin was a negotiator with the Romani group, there's no direct relation to his death. Time passes, and Lawrence's father wears shades at night while looking at the moon, which makes him suspicious. Could he be the werewolf that has been killing civilians? As Lawrence delves deeper into his past, he is plagued by a flashback of his early life, and his childhood memories become vividly apparent. In one particularly poignant recollection, he sees John, his father, standing over his mother's dead body, a blade in her hand and a pool of blood surrounding her. Initially, it was assumed that Lawrence's mother had committed suicide, but the presence of John at the scene raises many questions. Why was he there? What role, if any, did he play in this tragic event? These questions haunt Lawrence as he endeavors to uncover the truth about his family. The following day, Lawrence talks to Gwen and tells her of his decision to keep his wife in a mental asylum for almost a year. Larry visits the Romani's camp to inquire about Benjamin's death. But before we hear anything from the conversation that would reveal Benjamin's death, the guys with whom he almost started a fight in the pub set an ambush. Since the Romanis had a pet bear, Lawrence gets convinced that it was responsible for Benjamin's death. At first, the Romanis look like horse racists. However, the werewolf appears, and everyone mingles. The werewolf starts attacking everyone, chopping off some people's hands and piercing through the throat using sharp claws. Lawrence rescues one woman before she gets killed by the werewolf and risks his life further by trying to help a confident boy who runs into the foggy forest. Though with a gun in his hand, the werewolf jumps over a high rock, strikes his neck, and then bites him. Despite the dire circumstances, Lawrence is ultimately rescued by the local villagers, who manage to shoot the creature and injure it. However, the damage has already been done, and Lawrence is gravely wounded. He is taken to Maliva, who bravely defies the wishes of others and stitches Lawrence's wounds, nursing him back to health after several months. It is a long and challenging recovery, but with Maliva's skilled medical care and unwavering support, Lawrence can eventually return to his everyday life. According to the Romani people, it is said that many will suffer if Lawrence is allowed to live. The fates can be cruel, and it is believed that Lawrence can only be released from his suffering by one who loves him deeply. As the movie progresses, this prediction comes to fruition, with a surprising twist towards the end that ultimately allows Lawrence to find peace and release. It is a heart-wrenching tale of love, loss, and the power of the human spirit to overcome even the most trying of circumstances. Lawrence is taken home for recovery. However, he begins to have delusions that seem real to him. One of the things he sees while having bed rest is a half-turned werewolf and a fully turned werewolf which scare him on the bed. the doctor comes and tells Lawrence of his healed forearm. The doctor doesn't believe anything concerning the werewolf, even though there are people who saw it and live to speak about the creature. John becomes more suspicious, and Lawrence starts experiencing changes in his body. He becomes too sensitive about the impending danger. Inspector Francis comes to investigate Lawrence's attack by the werewolf, but doesn't consider the testimonies of the Romani's eyewitnesses, probably for reasons only known to him. The inspector believes in the mystery of the natural predators left in England that can inflict such horrific injury. He continues experiencing more hallucinations as the werewolf power starts getting more assertive in him while standing with Gwen at the nearby water body. His hearing capability becomes, and he senses more people approaching. Nearly the full moon, he was bitten by the beast, and he bears his mark, which makes him harmful, according to the remaining locals and civilians. Fortunately, John comes around and threatens to harm them for trespassing on his property. As Lawrence's powers continue to grow and his sensitivity to danger increases, he implores Gwen to leave immediately, sensing that impending doom is approaching. Skeptical to superstitions, Inspector Francis intervenes and lacks a reason for arresting Lawrence. One day Lawrence, accompanied by John, goes down to his mother's tomb, where John reveals his plan to lock him up. Despite his initial protestations, Lawrence is unable to resist the call of the beast within and transforms into a werewolf, as does John. Lawrence flees but falls into a trap where hunters capture him. However, the power of the wolf within him becomes too firm, and he manages to break free and kill the hunters. Despite being shot multiple times, he miraculously survives and escapes. Inspector Francis arrives on the scene to investigate and wonders what could have caused such destruction. The following morning, John shows his disappointment in Lawrence, who gets arrested and taken to the asylum. He meets a doctor who has made enormous strides in treating delusions. Thinking is an issue of mental health problems. The treatment is done by immersing Lawrence in water, but it doesn't work. After a short while, John visits his son inside the cell and decides to unfold how he got a curse when a werewolf bit him. The curse turns him into a werewolf at full moon. He had made several attempts to free himself, including seeking help and contemplating suicide. Eventually, he embraced the curse after realizing there was nothing he could do about it. He became drunk and highly violent to the extent of striking out singers who tried to restrict him. This becomes clear to Lawrence, revealing the truth about his mother and Benjamin. John was the one responsible for the death of his family members. Lawrence attempts to kill John for killing his mother and brothers, but fails as he is tied in chains. Later, Lawrence is brought before witnesses to testify that the full moon does not affect him before he turns into a fierce werewolf and breaks out of the asylum. He sheds a lot of blood attacking the doctor and those around him, then turns back to his human form to mingle with the people in the streets to evade the search by the guards. Lawrence reaches out to Gwen the following morning, and Gwen offers to help him and find a cure for his condition if possible. Gwen makes up her mind to research Lawrence's condition in books, but eventually reaches out for help from Maleva. According to Maleva, there's no cure, and the only solution is to make a killing blow to a loved one. Lawrence sneaks back to get his silver bullets as Francis organizes a group of men to hunt Lawrence down. Lawrence comes across Singh's dead body, which was killed by his father, John, who's seen playing the piano when approached by Lawrence. Both have a slight father and son conversation when Lawrence picks up a gun and attempts to shoot his father. Unfortunately, no bullets have come out since John removed the gunpowder years ago. John hits his son with the gun, canes him, and both transform to continue fighting. Lawrence kicks John into the nearby fire, and Gwen and Inspector Francis show up. Gwen interferes with the shooting of Lawrence by Inspector Francis as she picks up the gun and runs through the foggy forest. Lawrence pursues her and finally attempts to kill Gwen after succumbing to his werewolf instincts. Gwen remains with the choice of protecting her life and decides to shoot Lawrence to death. Finally, Lawrence returns to normal as he holds Gwen's hand and dies. Nevertheless, Francis survived the tragic scene.